Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Mindset Monday. My name is Lauren Espy, and today I am joined by a friend of mine, Dr. Dickinson, Dr. Wendy Dickinson. She is an amazing psychologist that works here in the Gwinnett County area. She is the founder and CEO of Grow Counseling. She's been a psychologist for over 2 decades practicing. She's trained under Dr. Brene Brown, is an adjunct professor at Richmond University as well as Georgia State, and she is a friend of mine. So I will be referring to her today as Wendy. And Wendy, we are just so honored that you're here at Mindset Monday. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Wendy's going to be talking to us today about something that she specializes in, and it's the area of stress. And I believe for all of us watching today, COVID-19 has been a stressful season. And so today we're going to spend a few minutes just talking about how do we cope, manage, deal, and grow awareness around this idea of stress. So to begin, Wendy, I would love to ask you this. I think when it comes to stress, there are sometimes where it's like, well, I'm a little anxious or I'm a little nervous, but the reality is we actually are probably experiencing stress. So how would you, as a psychologist, define stress?
There are really 2 elements to stress. There is the demands that we're facing, so things that feel dangerous, they feel overwhelming. They're the things that we have to sort of get up our, energy and effort to do. And then there's the resources that we have or perceive that we have to meet those demands. So as long as our perception of our resources is high, we feel like we have financial resources to meet the demands, we have social support, we have the skills or tools or ability to do something, our stress is a little bit lower. What happens is when our demands go up and our perception of our resources go down, that gap starts to create what we feel in our bodies is a lot of stress. What we know is that our perception, our assessment of the demand and of our ability to meet it is really important because sometimes those can be off. So we can be in a situation that doesn't appear to be that stressful from the outside, but we're feeling a lot of stress in our body because our perception is that we can't do whatever it is that we're needing to do. We can't meet the demand. Part of that goes back to our primal brain. I call my clients is the lizard part of our brain, right? It's the smallest part that is responsible for keeping us alive. And so we are hardwired for survival. That part of our brain is always searching for what's out there, what are these demands, what's going to create danger. So that's always going. And if we're not paying attention to what our resources are, our coping resources to manage that demand, pretty quickly we can get out of whack and start to feel a lot of stress. So a couple of things we know that makes stress greater is when something is unknown, it's unpredictable, and there's no timeline. So when you think about what we've just been through in terms of a world pandemic, pretty much we meet all the criteria for a stressful event. And then you add on to it everybody's individual situation, staying home with kids, financial instability, watching the media, the stock market, all these things are making our stress go up and up and up.
That is fantastic. That is so helpful to know because the reality is, I love that I can look at a situation and think this isn't that stressful, but based on how I perceive my resources, that really is impacting the feeling of stress I have. That's so powerful to think about. So let me ask you this. How do we gain awareness of how we're perceiving our resources, right? Because if that really is one of the huge impactors of this, how do we gain awareness of where we are and the stress we're feeling?
That's a great question, Lauren. I think, honestly, if you think about a scale, with my clients, I like to use a real basic scale of green, yellow, red. So green is maybe a day at the beach, and red is super overwhelmed and, can't manage. I think most Americans live in yellow or maybe orange, actually, and feel like that's just normal. We just go about our day living in stress. The American Medical Association has identified that stress is a factor in more than 75% of physical illnesses that people experience. So it's not just an emotional thing. It actually impacts our bodies. And when you think about, talking to a friend about how they're doing, what do we answer a lot of times is, oh, I'm so stressed out, So I think it's just this thing that we live with, and we don't really pay attention to how damaging it can be to our body. So I think that awareness piece is key to recognizing what are the things that cause our demands to go up. One of the important points is that it can be positive events. So a marriage, a baby, a new job, a move, all of these things can be fantastic and exciting, but they're also stressful because they increase the demand in our life. So I think part of it is really about turning off autopilot and dialing in and paying attention to what are the stressors, and also what do I perceive are my abilities to manage those.
That's great. That's great. So if I'm living in orange, maybe red right now in the season, but living in
we'll
orange.
Call it orange. We'll call it orange.
That just makes me feel better, Anyways, so what are some practical ways that I can start living in yellow, hopefully at some point in green? Because I love being able to gauge where I am, because it gives language probably to the people in my life. Like, hey, my stress level's at an orange right now. So if I'm snapping at you, it's because I'm stressed, And I love that idea of having a color to identify with. But how do I move into that? So I need to raise my awareness of where I am. That's probably the first step. But then secondarily, what do I do once I identified I'm at an orange and I want to move to a yellow or a green?
Yeah, that's great. So the first thing around the awareness piece, part of what we need to understand about our brain is that we don't know the difference between what's real and imagined. Your brain on a biochemical level doesn't know the difference. It responds the same way. So if you think about having a dream, you're totally dead asleep and somebody's chasing you, and you wake up and the covers are all a wreck and you're sweaty and maybe you're breathing hard, it's because your brain actually thought that somebody was chasing you in the middle of the night. So part of what we have to do is recognize that all of our perceptions are important. And we can't just sort of live with this stress hanging out, or this idea that like we don't have resources and expect that that's not going to have an impact. It does on a biochemical level. So the first practical thing I suggest to my clients is set an alarm throughout the day. Now, the caveat here is that this might create a little bit more stress before we decrease the stress, but it's about that awareness piece and understanding, how am I feeling? So basically every 2 hours, stop and just do a 2 or 3 minute check-in with yourself. Pay attention to what's going on in your body. Is your heart rate up? Are your palms sweaty? Are your thoughts racing? Do you have an emotion that maybe is different than what you had the last time you checked in? And just pay attention. Sometimes what happens is throughout the day, we sort of put rocks in our backpack. And by the time we end the day, we're carrying this super heavy backpack with us, full of all the stressors from the day. So that 2 hour check-in is a great way to take a rock or two out and go, okay, I'm going to let this float away, or I'm not going to carry this with me, or that happened and I need to spend a few minutes paying attention to it, but then I'm going to move forward without as much weight in our backpack. So I think that awareness, the checking in piece is really important.
I love that. One of the practical tools, because I've started to use that method, one of the things out there for any of you watching, John Eldredge, who wrote Wild at Heart back in the day, has recently created an app that does exactly what Dr. Dickinson is saying right now, that it helps you create a 1 minute pause, a 2 minute pause, a 5 minute pause. And it really, at the end of it, says, Jesus, I give everything and everyone to you, which is exactly what you're saying, Wendy, is we've put all these rocks of expectations and people and responsibility in our backpack. And yet we got to be reminded, this is not mine to hold. This is not mine to solve necessarily. I'm responsible, but I don't need to be overly responsible in these moments. And so that's just one app that any of you can use to really apply what she's discussing in this to your day-to-day life. I absolutely love that. Speaking of us taking the things that we may put on ourselves or the pressures we do, how do you connect our faith in God with stress? How do you merge those as a believer, but also a practicing psychologist? How do you merge those together?
Well, I think part of the reason that in the Bible we see over and over, don't worry, don't fear, is that God knew we were going to struggle with fear, and he knew we were going to struggle with worry. And so there's all this admonition to not do those things, which is easier said than done a lot of times, right?
Yes.
I think what this comes back to is a process that I think of as confirmatory bias is the psychological concept. But the way I simplify it for my clients is what you focus on grows. And so the more that you focus on finding the positive things, defining and declaring what is true over your life, the more that's going to rise up, the more hope we have, the more we feel grounded. When we ask ourselves, right now in this moment, right this moment, am I okay? Most of the time, the answer is yes. Most of the time, we're not being chased by a bear or a tiger or run over by a car, whatever it is that we worry about. And so I think when we focus on what assurances we have from Scripture, from our faith, the resources that we have around us, that's what's going to rise up. So I think for me, that's really the key point there is like, I think that's the reason that God kept reassuring us, like, don't worry, don't fear, focus on what is good and true. And that's going to be the thing that helps to decrease our stress. If we focus on the stressors, those are going to rise up. There's no doubt about that.
I love that. So your focus plays a significant role in the way that we can de-escalate the stress and ultimately probably how we perceive the resources in our own life, whether they're enough or not enough in that moment, just to be reminded of where we can focus. I love that. As we wrap up today, I would love for people to know how to stay in touch with you, Wendy. Personally, I just cannot speak to what an incredible counselor you are, what your entire organization, Grow Counseling, is about. They have helped so many people in our church. They've helped me personally. And so I just could not speak more highly of Grow. So I would love to know, how do we stay in touch with you and in touch with your team?
Lauren, thank you for that. We are honored to be able to walk through seasons with people. We have offices all throughout Atlanta, Buckhead, Alpharetta, Gwinnett, Swanee area, and Peachtree City. And you can find us online at growcounseling.com. We also have a bunch of resources. We work really hard to provide resources to the community that are free. So we have blogs, we have podcasts, we have a free ebook they can download right now on self-care, which fits beautifully with the conversation we've been having today. So we are here to help people. And we always say that even if we're not the right fit, we are happy to help you find the right fit. So we're happy to walk alongside people with whatever they need.
I love that. I love that. Wendy, thanks for being here with us today. I hope you guys go to their website, check out their free resources. They are top notch, not just information, but ways to help guide you and us through this season of COVID-19. Thank y'all so much for watching today for another Mindset Monday. And we can't wait to see you back here next week. If you would subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. Hope you have a great Monday. We'll see you soon.